Hello, welcome to part 1, setting up a practice environment as well as many useful console commands. So first, we'll talk resources real quick. Um, Firstly is speedrun.com/L4D2. This is the main speedrunning page for Left 4 Dead 2 where you submit runs and whatnot. On the site, there's also a resources section and a guide section. So on the resources section, you'll find things such as scripts that can set you up for voting, which I will cover in this part, but that's there too. Blank split files for live split, in case you don't want to set up the campaigns yourself. I uploaded those. There's also an auto splitter for live split, which isn't pinpoint accurate, but it'll get you very close so you know where your run is by the time you finish it. And in the guide section, you'll see, well, a link to this tutorial series, as well as a load removal video that demonstrates how to do that with a program to manually remove loads from your run. And all of these resources will be in the bottom of this description as well. I'll put some direct links into various things. The link to the Left 4 Dead speedrunning Discord will also be at the bottom here. We all hang out in there, and there's lots of resources, including the game versions, the old game versions that we use. If you want to check that out, ask any questions, get those game versions, whatever you need. And finally, at the bottom is also a link to a document that has all of the console commands I'm about to cover written out, with brief descriptions of what each one does, in case you need a quick refresher. So you can get a lot of information from that if you don't want to watch all of this video, but at least for me, I learned by example, so the video can be pretty useful to show you how to best utilize the commands in your practice environment. So, on to server setup. So first we will cover actually launching a server in the first place. Now, you cannot use the main menu to do this because you will not be able to allow cheats if you launch a server through the game's main menu. You have to use the map command in the console to launch the proper server. I'm already in one currently, but to do that it's very easy. It's just map, space, and then a map name. So all the campaigns in Left 4 Dead 2 follow a very specific ordering. C means campaign, and then there's a number. There's 13 campaigns, so it goes 1 through 13. So C1M means mission. C1M1 is Dead Center 1. C2 would be Dark Carnival, etc. So C1, that's campaign 1. M1 is the map within the campaign. So Dead Center has 4 maps. You can see it goes M1, 2, 3, and 4. And then an affix of the map name, Hotel, Streets, Mall, and Atrium. And that follows for every single campaign. So Dark Carnival, you see C2, M1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so on. So once you're in a server like this, once you enter that and load a server, to change the map that the server is on, you can use change level. So if you use the map command again, it'll launch another new server and take you out of your current server, which is not ideal if you have co-op partners practicing with you that are already connected to your server. So you want to use change level instead. It works exactly like the map command. It's just change level instead of map, and that'll just simply change the map that the server is on rather than launch a new one. And then to actually use a lot of the commands that you're about to see, you then need to turn sv_cheats there we go, cheats to 1. Obviously 1's on, 0's off. Now for those co-op partners that I mentioned, once you launch the server and you have port 27015 forwarded on your router, for anybody else to connect to you, they will need to open their console and use the connect command along with your public IP, and as long as everything went fine, they should get right in. There is one command that I can mention here, sv_lan. Now that should be defaulted to 0. Your LAN should not be on 1. But just in case they can't connect, you could check this command. It's possible that it could be on 1 for whatever reason. If it's on 1, nobody can get in. So I suppose also if for some reason you want to restrict anybody from being able to join your server when you make it, if somebody's being annoying that has your IP, you could turn that to 1 to restrict them. That's a possibility. So, another thing you can do is Z difficulty. This changes the difficulty that the server is currently on. So, the internal difficulty names are a little bit different than what you actually see printed in the game. So you're used to them being called easy, normal, advanced, and expert. But the internal names are easy, normal, and then hard is actually advanced, and impossible is expert. So when you change it directly like this, just remember you have to write hard to change it to advanced, and you have to write impossible to change it to expert. The other two are the same. So that bypasses the vote creation timer and everything. It just directly changes the difficulty. And speaking of that vote creation timer, so the later versions of the game, if you're on those, has a 3-minute wait timer between being able to call votes. That is SV_vote creation timer. You can see there. 180 is 180 seconds, 3 minutes. So if you want to basically eliminate the timer, you could just change this to 1 second. That's basically equal to eliminating the timer in case you want to be voting a lot. And you won't find that command in the older versions because it was implemented later in the game's life. Okay, on to binding and voting. Another quick note before we move on to binding and voting that I forgot about is host_timescale. This controls how quickly the game runs. So if you do like host_timescale 1 is normal time, 0.5 is half time. You can see things are quite slow now. You can go further to slow it down even more. You can also increase it. Host timescale 2 would be double time. You can see I'm very fast. And you can raise this infinitely high. Eventually, your game will crash. But you can go really high with it before that happens usually, as you can see. So if you want to speed up, whoops. If you want to speed up an elevator arriving or something, you could raise host timescale just to make that faster, and then lower it back to 1. Up to you. Alright, anyway, back to binding and voting. So first up is bind. This is very important, and you will be using this quite a bit. It's simply binding a command, any command you'd like, to a key. So it's bind space, now the key that you want. So let's just say C, since that's what I usually put my noclip on. Now, it's good practice to encase whatever you write here in double quotes, because if there are any spaces, it won't take it unless everything is encased in double quotes. So you can do a double quote. Noclip. So now my C key will activate noclip. If you want to bind more than one command to a key, you have to use a semicolon to separate them. So one thing that I do with that key pretty often myself is bind C, noclip, and then semicolon, space. So now you can write another command, and you can do this pretty much as many times as you'd like. I think there is an upper limit, but it's pretty high. And then say give health, so that I can refresh my health every time I turn noclip on and off. So that'll now change noclip and give myself health. So you can bind any key to basically anything you want in that way. There's also another thing you can do called increment var. So you would bind something increment var. Put a double quote there. Now how this works is you put a command in, then you put the minimum value, the maximum value, and the delta. So I'll explain that in a moment. So let's say we do this command, r draw clip brushes. So this command has 0 for off, 1, and 2. If we want to make this a toggle between all three, you would do minimum value, that's 0. The maximum value is 2. And then the delta is how much it increases the number by per hit. So we want it to increase by only 1. So it'll go from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, etc. So you do a 1. So that'll increase by one number between 0 and 2, which toggles it between off, and then one of its settings and another one of its settings. as you can see there. So that's pretty useful for any commands that have multiple numbers that you might want to cycle between. Another thing that you can bind is call vote. So call vote is to change the difficulty, the campaign, or restart the current campaign that's on the server. This is used a lot during speedruns, so you'll be binding this to a key most likely, or using a script that I'll discuss in a second. So the first thing is change difficulty, like that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Now, one thing to note is that, as I discussed before, by using Z difficulty, it's easy, normal, hard, and impossible to change difficulty between easy, normal, advanced, and expert. When you call this vote, you want to make sure to capitalize the first letter. Easy. You want to capitalize the first letter of the difficulty so that it prints properly on the screen. I'll show what I mean here. So if you do easy without a capital E, see how it says %S1? That's because you didn't use a capital letter, so it didn't know what difficulty you were actually calling. It does work fine, it just doesn't display it properly. So you should, let me vote creation timer. So just make sure that you capitalize the first letter. Impossible. I'll vote it back to expert. Whoops, I just see difficulty. Alright, let's just do call vote. And this time I'll do a capital E. And now it says easy. So keep that capitalized. The next thing is change mission. So call vote, change mission. Now this, just like using the map or change level command, works on a number scheme. So how you vote is L4D2, C, and then a number for the campaign you'd like. So calling a change mission to L4D2 C1 will be dead center, calling it to C2 will be Dark Carnival, etc., etc. C13 is the last one, which is Coldstream. And the last thing is restart game. So that's just simply call vote, restart game. That'll call vote to restart the current campaign back to the first map. And the final thing is the voting cycler script. So on speedrun.com/L4D2, in the resources section, there is a cycler script which you can bind to a single key, and each time you hit the key, it'll vote for a campaign and then change to the next campaign in the order that you've chosen. So that's used for the main campaigns and all campaigns categories. So you can just use one key to vote between all the campaigns as you're going along with your run. It's a lot more convenient. I would highly recommend taking a look at that. There's more instructions included with that download that you can read about. So I just wanted to throw that in here. And it'll also show you how you can bind those commands to utilize the script to a key using that bind I just showed you. Alright, on to player effects. Now it gets good. Alright, first one is massively important, no clip. So if you're not already familiar, no clip basically turns off your player collision and lets you fly through the air through anything you'd like. As you can imagine, that's extremely useful for practicing. So as you saw already, I usually bind that to C. So bind C no clip, and then when I hit this, it'll toggle it on and off. So you can see no clip, I'm flying around, can go anywhere I want, and then I can hit it again and turn it back off. The next command is give. You'll be using this quite a bit as well. Give basically directly gives the player an item. So you can see if you do give space, there's a pretty long list of items here. You can use tab to cycle through them. You can also enter the first letter to narrow it down, basically. So now it'll cycle through the A's. So there's adrenaline, there's ammo, which will just fill up your gun, auto shotgun. You can give yourself weapons, you can give yourself items, you can give yourself propane tanks, gas cans. There are a lot of different items. You can just look through this list yourself. That would be the easiest. I definitely don't want to go through everything because there's a lot. You can also give health, which will fill up your player health completely. So you'll probably use that quite a bit. The next thing you can do is upgrade _add. So This gives you a weapon effect to your current weapon, such as laser sights, explosive ammo, or incendiary. So you can do upgrade, add explosive ammo, incendiary ammo. If you do upgrade, add in space, you can see it auto-completes there, or a laser sight. You can also, with the give command, give yourself these, the incendiary and explosive anyway, to deploy. I guess not laser sight. Don't think you can give yourself that, because it's supposed to spawn. So yeah, you'll want to use this if you want laser sights, basically. Next thing that's very useful is infinite ammo. That does exactly what it sounds like. You can fire your weapon, your ammo will never deplete. You can just fire for as long as you please. No problem. Next thing is God. So I'm sure everybody's going to be familiar with this, but turn God mode on, can't get hurt by anything. I take a fall, no coming bots, no damage. So now this is kind of paired with the next command. I need to explain how this works briefly. So with God mode on, you can't take damage, which means that you also cannot stumble from things. And stumbling is going to be important for some certain tricks, like shooting a propane tank. You can see that did nothing to me. That's because of God mode. So to practice things like that, instead of using God mode, what you'll want to do is use Buddha. Buddha basically prevents the last person alive from being able to die. You'll lower to about, I think it's 7 health or so, and you won't actually die. So since you're being dealt damage, you can still stumble, but the map won't reset. I'm pretty sure with bots here, I can still go down, because I believe it only works when there's one player left alive. That's how I understand it anyway, but yeah, you can use Buddha instead to not die, but still be able to stumble from explosions and whatnot. Or to test maybe how much falling damage you're taking from something, assuming that it isn't a fatal fall, because then you won't really be able to tell since you won't die from it. But that's another useful thing. So the next one is go away from keyboard. This is a co-op only command. You cannot use this in single player because there has to be at least one other human player in the server to be able to idle. It's the exact same thing as clicking take a break here in the menu, except you can bind it to a key to do it easily. It's just simply go _away _from keyboard, _from keyboard. Bind that to whatever key you'd like, hit it, you'll go idle. One quick note is that if you're a client in a server and you have ping, the higher the ping you have, the less consistent it actually idles. Sometimes you might need to spam it a few times and it can be delayed. So yeah, it's not 100% reliable. You'll kind of get used to that. So next thing, get position and set position. This is quite handy. So get position gets your character's exact location and angle. So if I'm looking up in the sky like this, get POS for position. Now you can see it printed in the console, set position, set POS. That's where I'm standing. Then there's a semicolon there and set angle, set ang. That is where I'm aiming. So if you want to just return back to where you're standing, you only need to copy the set position. If you want to also have your exact same aim, you can add set angle to that. And then of course that leads into set position and set angle. So you can enter that again. You can also bind these to a key. Like I could take those values, bind it to a key, and then I can hit the key to reset to the same spot over and over again. So if you're repeatedly trying a trick where you have to move a lot and you want to reset back to the first step, you can just get position there, bind that set position value to a key, and then hit it for a nice quick reset. Let me see if I do that. I'm standing back here with my angle up again. And if you mess with set angle, by the way, you can really mess up your view. So like you could twist it and stuff. Yeah, careful if you mess with that. Next is adrenaline _duration. I think this is probably pretty self-explanatory. The default is 15 seconds. I honestly don't know why it's 15.0f. I don't know what that's about. Some programmer probably knows better. You don't need to include that. You just do like adrenaline _duration 100, and the adrenaline will last for 1 minute and 40 seconds now. In case you are doing a trick that needs constant adrenaline and you don't want to keep giving adrenaline to take it and give it to take it, you could just raise this way up and not have to worry about it running out. And the last thing is spectator free roam camera. So there is, I looked this up, there is a command, yeah, so spec underscore allow roaming 1. This basically makes it so that in co-op, when you die completely, instead of having to view your teammates in third or first person, you can keep hitting your jump key, space by default, to cycle through the camera views, and you'll have a third camera view called free roam, which you can move around kind of as if you're no clipping, except you're not alive. So you can check ahead for items and stuff, let your teammates know what's up. We use that in co-op at certain points. So you can either use the console command to turn that on, because it's not on by default, or you can do it in, I believe it's multiplayer, here. You can also change it in the menu right here. Either way, it doesn't matter. Alright, and on to bot control. And first up is kick. So this you can use to kick the bots in the server, your AI teammates, and also special infected and tanks. So let's say we don't like Francis's ugly mug anymore. Just simply do kick Francis. Goodbye, Francis. And you can also do that, say, if there is a smoker, the bots might kill the smoker. Let's see. You'll see this command explained in the next section. Kick smoker. Goodbye, smoker. You can do that. Smoker, hunter, boomer, tank, etc. If there is more than one special infected out on the map, instead of being called smoker, they'll be prefixed a number. So instead of kick smoker, if there's another smoker, the next one will be given the name left parenthesis 1, right parenthesis. It's encased in parentheses like that. So that'll kick that smoker. And then 1, 2, 3, however many there are. So if like kick tank doesn't work, try kick 1 tank, and that'll probably work. Now, if you've kicked bots and you want them back, you can use SB underscore add to add the bots back to the server. It'll add them dead, which you'll see in a second how to get them alive again. Now, the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors, how Valve did the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors are kind of weird. They're actually still the names of the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors, but the game ends up adding them as the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors. So if I did SB add Francis, it actually won't work. I have to do his equivalent, which is Coach? Pretty sure it's Coach. Yeah. So Francis's equivalent is Coach. You can see that add him back. Rochelle would be Zoe. And Nick would be Bill. And Lewis would be Ellis. I think. Actually, wait, Francis is Ellis. Well, anyway, you get the idea. I forget. I don't do that a whole lot, so I forget how exactly they equate. But anyway, you can add them back like that. Usually they'll be dead. Francis is actually alive, which is weird, but either way, you can also use SB take control to take control of any character that you would like. So you can use SB take control, and yes, you do want to type Francis this time to take control of him. Zoe, Lewis, Coach, Rochelle, etc. to get control of any character you'd like. So if they're dead, you can use that to get control of their character. And then you can use a command I actually forgot about in last section, respawn, which if you're dead, it'll just simply respawn you instantly. The next thing is SB stop and start. So if you want to stop them from doing any actions at all, shooting, moving, everything, you can just use SB underscore stop 1. SB is survivor bot, by the way. This will not stop special infected and stuff, just your AI teammates. So if I walk away from them, they won't be able to move now because they're not able to do anything. You can simply go back to 0 to turn them on again. Another quite useful command I found is if you want to utilize the bots, if you want them to warp to you, like if you're in a server with maybe just 2 co-op players and you're testing spots to warp at and things like that, you can use SB hold position. This does not stop their AI, but it does stop them from moving. which activates a warping timer. You'll see that in part 2 explained. But eventually they will warp to you because they're not able to move to you, but their AI is still active. There they are. So you can use that in co-op to do some warps if you need to. Turn that back off. So next thing is warp all survivors here. That warps everybody that's alive to wherever your cursor is pointing. So if I look at that tree over there and I warp all survivors here, will appear somewhere at that tree. Yeah, right in front of it where I was aiming. So aim somewhere first, then use that. If I want to put us up there, I don't even know if that'll work exactly, but it worked. There you go. Another thing you can do if you want to very quickly get to the end safe room, maybe, to test transitioning your load times or anything like that, you can use warp all survivors to checkpoint. The checkpoint's always going to be the safe room. At least I've never seen it not be the safe room, so it should always be the safe room.
Someone gonna lock that door?
And next thing is SB all bot game. So in Left 4 Dead 1, this means that the survivors would move themselves without any players alive. They don't actually do that in Left 4 Dead 2, but having all bot game turned to 1 means that the player can die and the map will not reset. It'll prevent the map reset. So sometimes you can utilize that to try falling somewhere to see if it's going to be a fatal fall or not. And if you die and you have at least one of the bots in the game with all survivor SBL bot game on, the map won't reset, so you can just respawn and keep doing things. So that's pretty useful. And the last thing is AI talk idle enable. So when you're the last survivor and you're roaming around trying to practice solo stuff, your character is going to constantly be yelling out, "Hey, anybody out there? Hello?" And you can disable that by simply just using AI talk idle enabled 0. That'll turn that off. 1, they'll start talking constantly again. I guess if you want a friend, you can keep it on 1, but that gets pretty annoying when you're practicing for a while. Alright, on to enemy control. First up will be director, start, and stop. This is you'll be using this constantly in practice. It simply enables or disables the director in the game. The director is what spawns zombies randomly and special infected. It does not actually control tanks and witches, so you can still get tanks and witches in the maps if you go far enough along the map, but it'll turn everything else off from spawning randomly and annoying you. It'll also disable hordes from biles, by the way, so if you're testing throwing a bile, you might need to finagle it on and off to do that properly, or spawn stuff as I'm about to show you. So it's just simply director underscore stop, turn it off, director underscore start, we'll start it back up again. I don't want to enter it because if I enter it, a horde's going to call immediately, since I'm turning it back on and a horde has been waiting to spawn. So I'm not going to enter that. And the next thing is nb delete all. So this command is basically a nuke. This deletes every single non-player character that's in the server. It'll instantly remove the bots and common infected, special infected, tanks and witches, everything. It'll just nuke everything out of there. So if you want to quickly wipe the slate clean and start spawning stuff again, nb delete all is quite useful. And next is z underscore spawn. This is how you get enemies in wherever you want them to be. So kind of like warping the survivors, this will spawn things wherever you are looking with your cursor. So if I aim in that corner over there, I'll spawn something there. Now, the various things that you can do, if you just do z spawn without a value, it'll spawn a common. You can spam that to spawn a bunch of them if you'd like. You see they're all over there. You can do z spawn with a value like smoker, hunter, boomer. You can also spawn witches, just z spawn witch, tank. I guess that covers everything. And then, of course, you can use kick to remove them again, or nb delete all to remove them. Now, If you want to get a horde of zombies, you can utilize this command by doing something like, say, bind it. We'll use the C button again. Z spawn, semicolon, space. Now, you can just copy this and paste it a whole bunch. Each paste is going to be another zombie, so you can just do a whole bunch of them in there. And then when I hit C, it'll basically be a zombie explosion. So that's a decent way to spawn a whole horde if you want to try common jumps and stuff. Of course, they're annoying to wake up. You might want to raise the difficulty so you can shoot them and wake them up. Wow, I can't believe I just made that. And then MB delete all to get rid of them. So that is useful also if you turn the director off. As I said, when you turn the director off and then you throw a bile, you won't get anything. But if you spawn those zombies and throw the bile, they'll still be attracted to it. So you could do that if you'd like. And that covers enemy control. On to the final section, debug and technical commands. And here's where we get into the technical stuff of the game, if you want some extra information here. So first is CL underscore show pause, or show position, that pause is short for. This shows your character's current position, as well as their velocity, and where you're looking, and your name as well. So you can see in the upper left now, you can see position, my relative position, X and Y, and Z is the final number. You can see it go up as I jump. Angle is where I'm looking. Then you can see velocity. Running speed is 220. Those go by game units, so that's 220 game units per second that I am going. And you'd see that go up to 260 if I was under adrenaline. So quick note, I'm on the latest version of the game. The old versions of the game, this display is far bigger, and the numbers for your position, the Z position, get cut off, which is kind of annoying. So yeah, that's not a problem with your computer if you're using this in an old version and that happens. That's just how the old game was. I don't know exactly what version they fixed that, but at least in the latest version, it's smaller and you can actually see everything. So you'll see this in my videos coming up, by the way. I have this on most of the time so that you can see exactly what angle I'm looking at. The first number is very useful. That's the vertical aim, which is good for figuring out where to aim for doing co-op boosts and stuff. So next thing is R draw clip brushes. So you saw me do that briefly earlier when I was showing off increment var. This shows the clip brushes, or as some people call them, invisible walls, which stop your character that you can't see. So R draw clip brush is 1. That shows a wireframe, and yes, this will kill your frame rate, so good luck with that. My frame rate dropped significantly when I turned it on. This is just a wireframe, which shows the edges of the clips. So you can see there's red here. I'm running up against it. Could probably show it off a little better. Well, anyway, the high spawn commons by accident. So yeah, so that shows wireframe. If you use draw clip brushes 2, it shows them as a solid. I much prefer 2. I find it far easier to look at. So you're now looking at the invisible walls of the game, where they are everywhere. The red is the player clips, so that means that only players get stopped by this. You can see I'm standing on it right now. Enemies will go right through it, smokers, commons, etc. The purple over there, that is everything. It stops everything. Commons, enemies, players, so on and so forth. There's also, very uncommonly, you might see a dark blue clip. That is an enemy-only clip, so players can go through it, but the enemies cannot. That's used very rarely, so you probably won't see that. It's mostly going to be the red and purple. So if you want to check how high a clip is that you're trying to get on with a boost or something, you could turn this on and take a look. So let me turn that off so I get my frame rate back. The next thing is R draw other models. So this is basically wall hack. It can be useful in finales as an alternate to another command I'll show soon, so you can see where things are spawning. Draw other models. You want to use draw other models too. It shows the wireframe of everything, and that does go through walls. If you go far enough away, stuff will disappear. But you can see like the barrel over there. I can see it. I can see zombie bodies through the wall over there. If I spawn zombies, I can see them through the wall there. The colors are their various states of awareness, I believe. So you could potentially use this in finales to see where spawns are, if you would like to. I don't use this too much myself, but I figured I'd add it because there are some situations where it can be useful. Also, don't turn it to 0, by the way, because then your gun model and stuff will disappear. It's supposed to be on 1 by default. The next thing is clear decals. So I'll give a grenade launcher real quick. This basically, this clears all the decals from the world. Decals being like the bullet holes or these explosion marks. They're just textures that are applied on surfaces. So clear decals just removes all of them. You see they're gone now. In case you're doing a boost with a grenade launcher and you're shooting a really dark spot into a wall and it's making it hard to see where you need to aim, if you have a mark on that wall, you can use clear decals to clear that up. Pretty useful sometimes. Next up is Debug. So this is gonna start to get complicated. Try to follow with me, but you only really need to know this if you're looking for very specific new, maybe warp spots and things like that. So Debug will show you, first of all, enemies. You can see the colored circles underneath enemies. Those are their alert states as well. This is similar to the draw other models. You can also use this to see where things are, and that works from further away. And you can also see the nav meshes, which are these squares on the ground. So these nav meshes are what tells the AI how to move through a map, basically. And there's a whole bunch of these. Some of them tell AI where to climb, where to jump down. Each one flows into another one, and the flow starts from the beginning of the map all the way to the end safe room of the map. So you can use this to investigate it if you're looking for certain warp spots or something. Like if there's a nav mesh that's on top of an object and there's nothing flowing into it, it's possible that it'll be a Jesus spot because the enemies might not be able to climb up to it. As I said, this gets very complicated. So there's that, and then expanding on top of that, if you do Z show last area, this shows the nav mesh that a player is attached to. So you can see I'm attached to this mesh here. If I move, that line draws to this one, and so on. This is useful to know if you can do a nav reset so that it resets this line to the beginning safe room. You'll see that discussed in more depth in part 2. I don't want to rehash that here. But yeah, we covered how to utilize this line in part 2 more, but that's the command that you want to use to see it, to see what the player is attached to. And another thing you can do is Z show flow delta. So what I was talking about earlier with the map flow coming from the beginning of the safe room, or the beginning safe room to the end safe room, this is that flow. So this shows which nav flows into which other nav, and this is the average path that the enemies will try to take usually, and also draws the shortest lines to the end safe room. So if you find a nav that's up on an object, but it's not attached with that flow to navs down below, enemies might not be able to climb up because they won't know that the nav is up here, basically. They won't be able to path to it. So you can investigate that flow with that command. Also, a hilarious version of this command, if you use show flow delta 2, yeah. It's, if you want to see all the flow delta at once, it's, yeah, probably don't want to use this version of it, but it looks pretty funny, so I figured I would show that off real quick. Alright, let's turn that off. Now, let me turn Debug off just to get rid of the things here. Okay. Next one is director_debug. So this shows you some information about how the game is spawning things. Let me turn off show position, it's kind of overlaying here. Show position. Okay. So you can see a lot of information. Up the most top left, you'll see more information there in finales. There's not so much here right now. In finales, you'll see up there, it'll say where the finale script is, what phase the finale script is in. If there's a wait timer ticking down, it'll show there before another spawn comes in, and so on. That's very useful for really investigating what's going on in a finale. And then you can see map info. There's not really anything useful there. The lapse time, the map and stuff. Common infected stats. So the maximum population of common infected is 30. You can see it shows next mob size. Basically, when that timer ends, a zombie horde will spawn. It's being held up because of director stop right now. So if I turn it back on, you can see it's long overdue. Negative 3,000 plus seconds ago it would have called if director wasn't stopped. Population is how many zombies are currently active. So that'll go up to about 30. It can get to 31 or 32. I don't really know why, but it's supposed to max out at 30. Pending count is how many zombies are waiting to spawn. I think that's mostly relevant for finales. And it'll also show you the mob spawn areas, which is the areas that it has chosen for zombies to spawn in the maps. And we've got survivor stats. That stuff isn't, I haven't really been able to make use of that. Farthest flow is how far along the map you've gotten, as displayed by the rectangles on the ground. Flow is a second. Flow span, it's don't really, not too much useful there. Specials. First you can see it says 2 max because I'm on easy. It would say 3 if I was on a higher difficulty. So the timer to the left, 00S, those are seconds. That's how many seconds are left until that special is ready to take a slot. So if there's a timer, that special cannot spawn, even if there are slots available to spawn in. And it'll also show how many specials are active currently, so there's 0 of everything since the director's off. And the total specials. What it'll also show under there, which isn't there right now, probably because director's off, is the slots that the specials take. There's multiple slots which have a separate cooldown. So a special, once it's off of cooldown, will take a slot if there's a slot off of cooldown and actually spawn in. And those slots are what holds them back from spawning if there's too many active already. So, there's all that information. And the last thing is very useful for seeing where items spawn. It's director debug scavenge items. Debug scavenge items. So, you can see there are various arrows and stuff on screen now. This shows many spawn points for adrenaline, Molotov, grenade launchers, etc. Weapon spawn, you can see that's a pistol. Over here you can see there's some pipe bomb. Oops, I spawned more zombies. I'm used to that being my no-clip key. Let me just... I can see no-clip. Alright. So over here you can see it says pipe bomb. So there are 2 pipes there. Now, if a spawn point, like over here, let's say, if a spawn point does not have an arrow, that means that something has not actively spawned in that place. So there won't be anything there. Arrow means something spawned. No arrow means nothing spawned. So melee weapon, there'll be something there, because there's a yellow arrow. There will be a Molotov over there. Gas cans, etc.
Pass the bricks.
No grenade launcher there, because there is no arrow. Now, another thing with this is that if you suicide... I don't know if I have God mode on, let's see. Nope, okay. So if you suicide while this command is active, and you check your console, when the map resets, you'll see a bunch of stuff printed here. So, first what you see collected, this is how many spawn points there are in the map, basically, and the important information is attempting to populate. So that shows you how many items of each type actually spawned in actively in the map. So You can see pain pill spawn. There's 2 out of a possible 12. So there were 12 spots I could put it in, and it actively spawned 2 of them. So there are 2 pills on the map. You can keep going Molotovs. There are 3 Molotovs out of 8 possible spawns. Blah blah blah. Weapon ammo. That's probably more than just ammo piles. So what's really useful here is grenade launcher. You can see if it actually populated a grenade launcher, and you can use this to see what the chance is for a grenade launcher to spawn, or if one spawned, period. So there were 4 possible spawn points, and it did not populate any grenade launchers, so there won't be one on the map. If that says 1, then there will be one somewhere. You can see laser sight as well. So you can keep dying to reset the map, and check that out. And that'll do it for part 1. I will see you in part 2, showing off tricks and techniques that are demonstrated to be applied in your runs. See you there.